Hey y'all, 1 second. Let me oh hey Liz, hey Jessica, hey Marissa. 1 second, y'all. Let me close my door. Okay, how is everyone doing? Hopefully good. I'm sorry, I'm still trying to get settled in here. Glad you're doing okay, Marissa. Good to see you, Jessica. I feel like I haven't talked to you in ages. I mean, I did just talk to you, but I feel like I haven't talked to you in a while. I know you've been busy. You can't miss with a 4-hour nap. Okay, y'all. Well, let's get into it. I know it's been a minute since we've met because I've had to get my little life together here. Um, but we are back, and we are back in business. Are you still sleeping? Well, this live probably won't be super long. I don't. Well, who knows? Because let me tell you, I read Monstress a long time ago. Probably when the first volume originally released. I think I read it. As a matter of fact, hold on, let me go look at Goodreads right now. I feel like I read that first volume back in like 2017. I feel like that's when I first read it. I could be super wrong though. Let's look. Oh no, 2016. So I started reading I read the first volume back in 2016. So it's been a long time since I've read Monstress, and so it was a pure delight. Bethany had it for book club, September 22. It's been a very long time since I've read Monstress, and now I kind of want to go and read all 8 volumes, or the rest of the volumes that are out. I know there's another volume dropping this fall. Let's start as we always start with ratings. How would you rate Monstress volumes 1, 2, and 3? And then how would you rate You Brought Me the Ocean? I have thoughts about You Brought Me the Ocean, by the way. I'm interested to see what everyone else's thoughts are, but I have some thoughts about it. 5. Is that in order, Marissa? So volume 1, 2, 3, and then You Brought Me the Ocean? Okay. Jessica, what did you rate Monstress? I think I think volume 1 of Monstress for me would be 4 stars, volume 2 5 stars, volume 3 5 stars, and You Brought Me the Ocean is a 3-star read for me as well, Jessica. I'm right there with you. It wasn't a favorite, and I've been running into that a lot with DC's YA graphic novels. I don't think they go over as well as like people hope, as they hope that they would. Okay. Well, I'm interested to see why you gave the third volume 4 stars. How you went from 5 5 to 4. Much as in order. 4 5 4. All right, let's talk about You Brought Me the Ocean first. So just kind of a detailing for those who may be watching this on playback or those who are just kind of hanging out. Um, You Brought Me the Ocean is one of DC's young adult graphic novel things of sort. And it is, I'm trying to think how many of these I've read. I don't think I've read too many of the young adult ones. I feel like this is probably the second or third of them that I've read. Um, Usually what I've been finding with the DC young adult graphic novels is that they don't necessarily tie into the DC universe, which is not a bad thing. They usually use one or two characters to kind of pull the storyline into the DC universe, but it's just very interesting it's just very interesting the way that they handle it. So this one specifically focuses on two main characters. Our main character is in the process of figuring out his sexuality, and also has these weird markings on his body that his mother tells him is supposedly a birthmark. Um, he meets another character that he goes to school with, or he knows him, but he's never really spoken to him. This character is openly gay, and pretty much gets bullied for it in school because they live in a small town. It just, yeah. I'm sorry, Jessica. I was reading. I lost my train of thought because I went to go read your comment because I totally agree with that. I totally, when I tell you I agree with this comment, I so agree. I so agree with this comment. But essentially, the two of them end up being friends, sort of. It was weird the way I felt like the way they got connected. I'm sorry, y'all, if you hear like the firefighter and dogs barking at the same time. Neighbors and firefighters going at it. Um, I I must say I didn't really like the pacing of You Brought Me the Ocean at all. I thought the character development was really, really lacking. I felt like the two main characters kind of just got thrown together. Like it was just the way that they eventually link up didn't feel like it was fleshed out. And then this part, um, the superhero mess was genuinely just tacked onto it. It did not make any sense to me whatsoever. Um, and of course, whenever we do these live shows, we do spoilers. So if you're not here for spoilers and you're lurking, we do talk about spoilers. I did not enjoy the fact that Black Manta was kind of like weirdly brought in as his dad, and he was like this overarching like evil presence, but then like nothing came of it. It was so weird, and it just felt like it was done simply to make it part of the DC universe. It was not, it didn't feel like it was cohesive at all. And then I thought it would have made more sense for him to be related to like Aquaman's family in some way, because then I started thinking about Aqualad, and I thought that that would have been like a good Aqualad origin story, because right now in the DC universe, Aqualad is gay if I'm not mistaken. So I thought maybe we were going in that direction, but the fact that it was just weird that we did all of this. His mother's panicking. His mother's like, "We have to move. We have to pack up your stuff. Your dad's been hunting us, and I don't want anything to happen to you, and we have to keep you safe." And it like we hit this like we're headed towards this climax of him possibly coming to the town and finding them, and then nothing comes of it. And then I agree with you too here, Jessica. Like, I didn't buy them getting together. There was no chemistry. And I feel like the first time when they go hiking together, and they have their first kiss. There was nothing there was no tension. So for them, when they started kissing, I was like, that's really random that, like, one, you're not really sure, not saying that it couldn't happen, but he's still trying to figure out his sexuality, and they're talking about their experiences and being out and how that impacts them with their friends and their family. And then they start playing in a puddle of water and then they kiss. It was weird. It was it was so weird. It was I don't Hey Tia. Yes. Yes, good point, Jessica. Like, so in the storyline, there's this whole thing about the submarine and Superman and Aquaman working together because they stopped this cataclysmic event related to the submarine. And it was like this constant, like, backstory that we see throughout the course of the graphic novel. And then we get this one news flash where his mom hears Black Manta's name over the TV, and she kind of like tenses up, where you as a reader can kind of then put the pieces of the puzzle together that he probably is a connection as to why this main character has like all of these strange markings on his body before she goes in and she tells him the story. But he never makes an appearance on page. And so it was like all of this tension was built in the background, and for what reason? Now, I did like the inking and coloring, but I was not a fan of the art all of the time. Especially, I'm going to pull up the shot because there were some moments with like facial features, and it would only happen at certain angles, and I didn't like it. But I did like the softer, almost watercolor feel to the entire book itself. But um it was just some parts when like his face would be turned to the side where I thought the illustrations got a little strange. Trying to find a good panel where I feel like the art was a little awkward. Um, like this. Here goes a good one. His face doesn't look, um, I don't want to say symmetrical, but his face looks warped. Like, I don't know if y'all can see that. So in this pan, and you probably can't see it very well, but her face too, the angle at which her face is drawn is kind of weird. And then in previous panels, like his face is kind of distorted from what it had looked like in previous panels. It's kind of hard to tell via like showing you a screen on screen. Um, but I wasn't like a huge fan of that. They almost looked a little caricatured at some points, if that makes sense to anybody who's seen the artwork. But I was a big fan of like the inking and the coloring. I like that it was softer, and it wasn't as bright pop like in your face, and it was more natural hues. A lot of earth tones, which makes sense. Um, and of course, a lot of blue, which dealing with the water. Oh, phew, excuse me, that made sense. Marissa, that was on page. Hold on, let me see if I go back and find it. That was on page 26, and I read this. I think you read it before too. But it's page 26 on like the actual graphic novel. The page number on the graphic novel page is 26, not what Hoopla defines as 26, but the actual graphic novel page is 26. Um, yeah, I wasn't always a huge fan of the face, and her hair often bothered me as well. Like here goes another example where I felt like her hair was very much so disproportionate to her face, especially in compared to like other panels. Let me see if I can. Maybe if I turn down the light on this, that would make more sense, right? Hold on. Ah, okay, maybe this will work better. Okay, here. Like, her head is extremely disproportionate to her hair in this panel, and I did not like that. Like, her head looks extremely small, and then her hair is really, really big, but it does not look that way. It's almost like there was side profiles are not this illustrator's strongest work, because see, in the actual, like, head on, it looks fine. But as soon as you start getting into any type of views from the side, stuff starts looking a little distorted. So that was my biggest hiccup with that one. Although I thought that the coloring and the inking was really, really good. I love that they brought it back to the earth tones. But there was nothing really like amazing about it. I'd been meaning to read it for a while. Um, Especially since it came out in 2020. But DC often their YA line really doesn't do much for me. And I think the more that I read it, the more that I realize, like, I just don't necessarily think that their line is specifically for the YA line is for me. I like the middle grade stuff that they do. I think that stuff is really interesting. And I feel like that they actually work a little bit harder with the middle grade to tie it back to the universe, where they do like younger versions of the characters. Um, like, I love the ones that Shannon Hale and Dean Hale did with Wonder Woman and Nubia. Like, I think that those were so interesting. But these young adult ones, just like, it's almost like they just want the DC stamp on it, but not really super tied to anything relevant. Um, yeah, it's a quick read if you're looking for a quick read. It has, with June coming up and it being Pride, it has Queer Up in it. If you just wanted to give it a try, it's not a bad graphic novel. I've definitely read much worse, but it's pretty mid. It's probably one of the most mid, um, like, things that I've seen so far this year. See, that was another thing too, is that, like, apparently it's been happening his whole life, but his mother told him it was some electromagnetic things happening, like, with his body, which to me just never, even that explanation to me just doesn't even begin to make sense. But whenever his skin turned blue originally, and the other character had asked him, like, well, your skin is glowing, he was like, yeah, my mom told me it was some, like, electromagnetic situation going on, and that's why it does that. Which is, to me, is kind of a shit reason, but what do I know? But yeah, that was an okay that was an okay read. Um, yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Not bad, but better stories that kind of fit that same exact theme. I totally agree. It was trash. It made absolutely no sense. Absolutely no sense whatsoever. Okay, let's where is that? Now give me three. Um, let's dive back into, or let's not dive back into, let's dive into uh, Monstress. So Monstress now, believe, let me check and see, is 8 volumes, with the ninth volume dropping, I think, September of this year. It is one of the most, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to ask y'all a question since I think y'all have read it. Um, if you had to put this up against Saga, which one do you think you would like better? I was saw some other people talking about this, and I was very interested in hearing um, other people's thoughts. You would put Saga over Monstress? Marissa, tell me why. I'm just curious. No judgment here. I just want to know why you would put um okay, Jessica, Saga for the story, Monstress for the art. I think this is very interesting because Montress has won Eisner's and Hugo Awards. Um, and I definitely see why. And for me, oof, I asked y'all that question. I don't even know if I can truthfully answer that question either. I do agree here. I think that Saga is more accessible in terms of the world and what's going on. I think that Monstrous has a level of complexity to it that you are not going to see in Saga. And people classify Monstrous as sci-fi as well. Um, like most people classify it as sci-fi or more so. I've seen people classify it as sci-fi, but I feel like it's more epic fantasy. But that's just me. It has very much so steampunk vibes to it too, especially in volume three. I got strong steampunk vibes. Um, it is it is very confusing at times. But see, that's the reason why I think that volume one for me, I ended up rating lower than volumes two and three because volume one took me such a long um it took me such a long time to kind of work through it because it's this very complex world. And then it doesn't help that everybody is kind of fighting everybody. And I like that that point was kind of made in volume three that there seems to be no clear distinctions um, between um, between who's enemies with who and who's not. Allison, I feel like sci-fi is has more of I hate to say it. It has more of a sciencey feel to it. I think like space, I think time travel, um, I think futuristic things whenever I think sci-fi. I'm also not a big SFF reader. So you're taking this from somebody who's not like a huge SFF reader. And the two can blend together so easily. Um, but that's my feeling of what I think sci-fi is. Now, don't ask me to explain what fantasy is. I feel like you just kind of know. There we go. Thank you, Jessica. You read a lot of SFF, so you you do a better job at explaining this than I can. Please do. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I am not an SFF girly. Everybody knows this about me. The most SFF that I get is from comics and graphic novels. So this one does feel more. I've seen people classify it as sci-fi, but when I read it, it definitely felt more like epic fantasy, and it's blurbed as like as big as an epic fantasy as you would get from like Tolkien, which I definitely get. Um, I don't think the Energy season answer. It's I think that the more you read it, well, I can only speak for me. I can't speak for anyone else. But for me, it felt like the more I immersed myself in the world, the more I began to understand it. Even though by the time you reach volume three, I still don't think you have a clear understanding um, of everything that is this world. I think at the basic aspect of it, we have this main character um, who is a descendant of a goddess that was able to manipulate things. Now, whether it's machinery, whether it's magic base, I think I still don't have a full grasp on what she was able to do that gave them this connection to the old gods. And now that our main character has this old god that's attached to her, but then again, not really, they're severed. Um, by the time that we get to volume three, they're not as connected as they were in volume one and two. Um, she has the ability to change the entire world, whether that's to fix it or to completely destroy it. And so prior to this, we have different groups of beings, and I may have to look at names here because there's no pronunciation guide. If there is anything that I don't like, it's not having pronunciation guides. Um, so there are arcanics, which are not human. They're magical creatures that can pass for human. And so our main character, how did y'all say her name? Maika? I didn't know how to say it. I was saying this girl's name different every time I got to a volume. I was like, is it Maika, Mika, Mika? Like, what is her name? She's an arcanic, but she's not an arcanic in the way that we see the other ones, like the ones that look like supernatural beings. She can pass for human, but she's not. She's part wolf. So that old wolf that we like that old wolf that we continuously start seeing starting in the second volume, that's her grandmother. So she is part wolf. Her mother and her aunt are twins, and that is their mother. And so the confusion comes in because the arcanics can breed with humans. So there's humans, there's arcanics, um, and there's a human federation. So you have some humans who are neutral, and then you have the federation, which is led by the Kamea. I don't know what these things. I listen. We need to start a petition for pronunciation, guy, because I don't know what. But those are the ones that have the witches. Mika, okay, cause, cause Maya, cause Maya. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Jessica. I don't know. Oh, cause Maya is pronounced as Maya. Maya, Mika, Micah. Ah, okay, Micah. You see why you need listen. You see why you need a pronunciation guide, Micah. Okay. Um. So the Human Federation has humans. That's the part that the witches are a part of. The ones who use the propaganda in order to get the humans who are not a part of this specialized group of witches um, to basically be afraid of the Arcanics, and that's what's causing this tension and issues between the two groups, where they used to live in peace. But then it gets even more complex because you have the cats, who I don't trust, mind you. Every time there was this one section in volume three where the cats were like, "We don't usually get involved. We just report things as is," and I was like, "Bull fucking shit." I don't believe that, and I feel like the cats are up to no good as well. But then it gets even more confusing, I think, in the second and third volumes because you have Arcanics fighting each other. That's where the confusion gets caught. Like, that's where you get confused because there's two groupings of Arcanics, and the two of them are not getting along. So you have the Arcanics that um, Micah's family is a part of, and then you have which I think they're the Dawn, and the guy with the wings and a long black hair and the mask over half of his face, I believe that he's a part of the Dusk, if I'm getting this correct. And the two of them were not getting along because the one with the guy with the wings, they kind of went off grid. And we're kind of like, we're not saying much of anything. We're not saying shit. We're not getting involved. But then the group that Micah's family is a part of, her aunt is a warlord. And so she's always anxious and ready to fight, and she's pissed at them. But the whole thing about it is that even though it started off as the Federation versus the Arcanics, the Federation wants the Arcanics for their blood. They butcher them and they slaughter them to drain their blood. Which is what everybody's been trying to stop. I think all of that I think the whole point of this is that all of that has happened and is still an issue, but it low key kind of feels like it goes out the window because everybody wants Micah. Like, that's because everybody wants a piece of her, which I think is the whole thing. It's kind of it plays into her character, her flaws as a character, I would think. Um, because everybody is willing to slaughter everybody to get their hands on her because she's the one that has this power. There's a part of this prophecy that essentially she can wipe everybody out where everything can be fixed under her hands. Like, but 9 times out of 10, everything's going to go to shit with her. Um, I think that there's a part of me that's kind of eating up the complexity of this world because I like how Lou unfolds every part of the story. And the twists and turns, I think, are pretty daggone good too. Because there's literally this feeling of you can't trust anybody. And I think that feeds into me a little bit in my appreciation for fantasy that is very political or very military based. I like that going in and no one can really trust anyone because everyone has an ulterior motive. And person, the only character that I feel so comfortable with, like literally, there's only one character um, that I feel comfortable with, and it's Kippa. Hey Alana, I love Kippa. I know, Jessica, you said this earlier, but Kippa has the purest soul. And granted, Kippa is younger. Kippa is an Arcanic, but it's interesting because how much of like purity, because when they met that other guy that was chained up when they got to the island, and he was chained up and he was like, um, and he had everybody living on the island in a fucking illusion. That was like, I love that volume so much, y'all. I love that volume so much because I was not anticipating seeing any of that when they got to that island. And the only reason why that island existed the way it was because that guy was maintaining an illusion the entire time. Um, but I thought it was very interesting, like how he approached Kippa and was like, how much pure blood do you really even have? And I feel like that added another layer to how complicated this world is because it's easy to think like grouping all of the arcanics together, but then they even kind of classify themselves, or some of them classify arcanics based on their pure blood. And even like when Micah was on the ship and she was with those pirates, and the one that kind of looked like I don't know if it was a squid or if it was an octopus, but like when he approached Micah and was like, "You don't even look like an Arcanic. Like you look like a human and you smell like shit." That was an interesting thing to me because I think when we're presented this entire world, everything seems so black and white. But the more that I continued to read volumes 1 through 3, I felt like, goodness gracious, there's so many layers of complexity like involved in each one of these factions. Um, like nobody. nobody seems to be able to stand on the united front, and the only thing that brought them together was the possibility of this old god kind of like breaking through the prison, which technically is another freaking cliffhanger because I thought that the gods that they saw in the sky were literally like they kept describing them as like ghost, or they weren't like they weren't really real. They weren't really the old gods. Like it, but then in that last volume, that shit broke through the sky and it was like they're all so if it's for me, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Here's where I'm confused. I don't know if I can really differentiate between like the ancients and the old gods. And I feel like the ancients are like Micah's grandmother, possibly, are the old ancient, like the most pure blood organics before they started intermingling with humans. I feel like those are the ancients, and the old gods are all those things that just look like the multiple eyes and the wormy type hands and feelings and stuff like that. Um, but even that, like that's the only time I saw everybody on the same page was when that old god was finna like tear their ass up. Then everybody wanted to be like, do something. We all have to feel we all have to be on the same page. I believe it. I believe it. Because every volume that I have read um so far it feels like it's so intentional to layer everything where nothing is done without purpose. There is this level of confusion that is intentional for the reader because Lou wants to be able to unfold the story in a certain way, and has designed this world a certain way. And now I'm eager. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I am low key eager to read all the way up to volume 8. And I haven't felt this way since reading Saga, um, and Radiant Black. Like those two are the ones that really, really stick out in my head where reading through the series and I'm kind of like, dang, I really want to pick up the rest. Something is Killing the Children is another good one too, where I felt like I want to keep up with the releases. Um, yeah, I'm kind of basking in the confusion right now, and that's typically like not me, but I feel like it's with good intention because I'm not gonna lie to y'all, when I first started reading volume 1, I was like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. I'm not. This is not what I thought it was going to be or how I remember it. But by the time I finished volume 1 and then I started diving into volume 2, I said, okay, the confusion is intentional because she wants to be able to tell the story at her own pace. And as you continue, continue to show investment in the story, she's going to allow you to see certain things and things will start to fall into place. Because even like Micah has some really, really good um she makes some really, really good points at the end. Like, why are her and this god, which by the way, I don't know about y'all, but they have some really good banter and they're funny together. There's been some points, especially in volume 3, where I feel like he makes more of an appearance than he has in the past, and not just to feed, but literally they're interacting more. Their banter is hilarious. Like even when they went to go get the parts um in order to fix that machine, and that you could tell, like, and just like Mike, I think we as readers kind of knew when he keyed into the place and those first round of robots came and they basically turned on him. It was almost like you as a reader were like, yeah, something here is not right. And then that robot comes out and it's like, oh, you're back, it's good to see you. And it's like we as readers and Micah picked up on the fact like this bitch don't like you. And he was like, and he was completely clueless until like she was like, let's bond together, let's beat this big machine that says, oh, you're a betrayer, you're a betrayer. And Micah turns around and smacks her dead in her chest. And he's like, "How did you know?" And she's like, you really can't tell when people don't like you?" Like, it's just there's small little, like, quips at each other that I think it feels like they're going to be a good pair working together. Um, because I was really nervous about that in the beginning because, of course, she doesn't know what this thing is. Um, she has no idea the history behind it, and I think it's kind of heartbreaking as we go through and we kind of see her she's battling with what her mother's intentions were. Because, she's going through to learn more about her mother, and as she keeps going, she's learning, like, her mother did certain things, and she wants to know if she was simply, like, a tool for her mother's gain. Because for her mother to, like, her mother and her twin to be up where, y her mother had how did the cat the interludes with the cats are funny too, like the history pieces, because I feel like they also you have to pay very close attention to what they say because I feel like they also give a lot of context to some things. But I thought it was really interesting how they like brought up that Micah's mother was the oldest and was supposed to be the warlord. But when she discovered some other stuff, she kind of just was like, yeah, fuck it, never mind. I'm not going to do it. And that's when her twin sister became. And I think it's interesting that Micah and her aunt have not met yet. And I was so confused when her aunt first got revealed. I was like, holy shit, is that her mother? And then you realize it's her twin sister. And then the aunt didn't even know that Micah existed. So I'm waiting for the two of them to have their interaction. But anyway, what I was getting at was the point that at the end, she asked a good question about the fact that why the two of them can exist outside of each other, and he doesn't need to use her like a skin. And then on top of that, why are so many people in the Federation these creatures, and why can't he tell who is who? Because it confused me for a second because every time we turned around, I was like, damn. I was like, "Is another one? Like, how many and why? Like, what is the intention of all of them being here and using these skins?" Because it was the same thing even when they were on the boat. That monkey was one of them, and then those two pirates were. So it's like, how many? Like, who is who? And then when old girl used both of the things, the pieces of the mask on her face, she was like, "I pretty much got defiled." And it forced me to kind of release them. But then when Micah puts it on, you see all of them in chains. But then her kind of pairing, I forget his name, is it Zarin? Something along those lines, where he says like it was all hallucinations, but they were all chained, and it seems like they're chained and they're trapped there. But who put them there? It's like it's fascinating. Yeah, I like Tam Tam's lessons too because I feel like Tam Tam's lessons, although like reading it sometimes I'm like, damn, it's so fucking long winded. But it helps give better context, I think, to the world itself and the history of the world and how things have changed over time and who is who and who has played a role in what. Um, and it's not something that I thought that I would like, but I think the more invested, because I'm not gonna lie to you, in volume one, I was like, this is really frustrating. But I think as I stepped into volume two, I was like, okay, no, this is providing really, really good context for the history behind these things. Um, with the artwork, let's talk a little bit about the artwork because I own volumes one and two physically, and I read volume three digitally, which I should have just because I hate that I like even opened this. I'm trying to find a good. There was one thing that I like took a picture of. This artwork is sick. Um, it is some of the best artwork that I have ever seen in a comic. Like I like this artwork is the amount of detail, the realism in the faces, um, even in like the backgrounds, like just paying close attention to um the details on like even in this scene. Like you can't see it from the camera, but the detailing on these pillars is is immaculate. Um it's so detailed oriented, and I can't even imagine how long um how long it takes Takata to do this artwork. Um because like even this, like this, that is gorgeous. That just, it doesn't hurt that the artwork is absolutely beautiful. Um, what do y'all think about Micah's homegirl, who low key, I don't know what to make of her because I feel like she portrayed. Oh, I don't know. She about to marry her damn aunt. Like it's weird. And then I didn't realize that I thought they were just friends. I didn't realize that they had a I I didn't realize they had like somewhat of a relationship. I thought that was pretty interesting that they had a tidbit of a relationship, but then like she low key turned on her and sent her almost like into an ambush. But she was having dreams about old girl, and I was like, oh, so y'all was like together. Um, and I love all of the beautiful sapphic moments that we get in this comic. It has not been lost or missed upon me, let me tell you, because it's a lot of women loving women in this book, and I ain't mad at it. Um, but I was like, okay, so, but then here goes the other question, y'all. In volume 3, when she's about to make these marriage arrangements with Micah's aunt, which I'm like, girl, that's messy as shit. Um, I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, where are all the ancient ones from the Dusk people? Because everybody brought that up. They were like, oh, um, so none of the ancients came? Like, you, ain't nobody thought that was weird. I mean, like, they were talking about it like, dang, like, nobody showed up for her. And then they were like, well, she probably was concerned because nobody showed for her either. So I need to ask y'all because I need clarification from that scene. That, that, I don't know if y'all remember, because I don't know when everybody read this. Um, I don't know if y'all remember the panel where there were like all these dead bodies in a pit, and it was a cat that had taken one of their like, I guess the person that does intel for them had taken them to this pit. Were those supposed to be like the ancients from the Dusk people? Because I'm telling you that when I tell you that, that was like, dang, okay. So everybody's just massacring everybody. I'm trying to find that panel that I saw last night that literally blew, but every panel. I love the wide range of skin tones in this too, honey. Let me tell you, because when I flipped and I got to sis right here on the ship, I said yes. Body and face, giving it all. Like, hold on. Let me see if I can find it, y'all. Because that, I'm not gonna lie, that part did kind of confuse me because I didn't know if they were trying to say that all of the, hold on, let me see if I can find it. What do y'all think of Ren? Ren is another one who's like a morally gray character. And I feel like Kippa's the only thing that's keeping him on the right side of history. Then a girl had a daggone poodle in her book bag. That scene the one who ends up putting on the mask, that when I tell you that made me laugh out loud. Um, she had a fucking poodle in her book bag. Like that made me holler in that moment. And then there is a nonverbal character, and they communicated when she put both of the pieces of the mask on her face. The nonverbal character communicated with another character, and that character was like, "Yeah, you're right. You said something was off about that bitch." And it's like, so there's like um what I do like about this as I try to find this, because I'm not losing my mind. um What I do like about this series is that it is super good about inserting moments of humor in an otherwise extremely dark situation. So nothing about the series is lighthearted. It's a lot of death. It's a lot of manipulation. Um, it's a lot of carnage. A lot of violence. But there are moments where I feel like Lou kind of brings you out of it just to give you a little light piece because everything is so freaking heavy. And I like when writers who do very, very dark stuff um are able to like bring us out just for a second. Yeah, it is super, yeah. Size inclusive and disability. Right. Yes, yes. You're right. It's volume 3. I'm pretty sure it's volume 3, but I can't. Hold on. Let me. Oh, here it is. Yes. So there's a scene where they're with Mika's grandmother, and they're doing the marriage whole thing um as like a truce type of situation, and they're saying that um the ancients of the Dawn court weren't okay. So I had the courts flipped. um the ancients of the Dawn court weren't present for the negotiation, and they said that they're not in the city and they vanished, and our informants can't tell us when or even if they left. And then another character says, which makes no sense. What ancient would travel now and all of them together? They're too cautious for that kind of foolishness. And then someone says the Baroness was troubled by their absence, and someone says, as am I. Um, and then Fisk is the informant, and they said that she found a cat willing to talk, some apprentice who says the warlord committed a recent atrocity that involved the local necromancers. Huh, that's interesting. And it says nothing Fisk finds will make the Baroness change her mind about cementing the alliance. Not if it means she'll gain closer access to the Wolf Queen and her demon granddaughter. So I wonder if they're saying that the warlord, because I don't think I'm gonna be able to show y'all this image, but it's like a whole bunch of bodies in a pit. It's volume 3, page 69. I don't know what that's, but maybe it'll become more clear in volume 4, which I'm gonna freaking read. I'm going to that page that you just said, Jessica, 126. Hold on, because I need to see what you saw, because I feel like I missed this. Wait, wait. Um, let's see. 24. 726. Where are you? Oh gosh, Jessica. It does have a finger in its mouth. I was hollering when she was carrying him in a fucking book bag. I was like, what is going on here? Um, but y'all, I really do like this series. I'm glad that we kind of decided to come back around to it because I did not um I think it would have taken me such a long time to come back to it, to be honest with you. Um, and I'm glad that we did. And Scarlett, you've read up to volume 6. Jessica, do you see yourself continuing with the series? Like, is it something that you think you want to continue? Hold on. Oh, yes. Oh, you own all of them. Okay. Okay, cool. Well, that's good to know. All right, y'all. I think I this is one that I'm definitely going to continue. I think I even this week I may just go ahead and check out um volume 4 at least. I don't think I'll make it through all 8 of them like within the next week, but I do think that I do want to read through volume 4 to at least get the next part of the story. Same kind of Oh, they were only 7 volumes. Yeah, especially with that ninth volume coming out. I do need to be caught up before September because that's when that ninth volume is coming out. Okay. So, um we are going to be reading for June. Remember that we are going to be um, meeting the last Wednesday of June. Just to give everybody a heads up. So that's going to be June 26th. Same time, 8:30 p.m. EST. We are going to be reading um, Clementine Book 1 and 2. And then also Spider-Man, A Life Story by Chip Zdarsky. So that's Clementine Book 1 and 2, which originally those were on Hoopla. I will say if you haven't started reading, don't be like me and wait till the last minute. Um, because I this these books are a little bit bigger if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, let's see. Book 1 for Clementine is 260 pages, and then book 2 is 300 pages. So those ones are a little bit thicker than just your traditional trades. um, and since we decided, because I think that's how they are on Hoopla, is they're in the books and not, or they could just be that long. I don't know if they were trades or not, or if they originally um, were something different. Remember the walking, it takes place in the world of um, The Walking Dead. So that should be interesting. That is going to be more of a horror thing. Yes, Spider Man A Life Story is on KU if you don't want to use a. Thank you, Jessica, for letting everybody know that. If you do not want to use a Hoopla credit, which I may do it that way too, so I don't have to use a Hoopla credit. Um, I don't think Spider Man A Life Story is as long, and it's not coming up when I search it that way, but that one's by Chip Zdarsky, and I do like Chip's writing, which makes me want to reread Sex Criminals. Don't know why. Okay, Spider-Man: A Life Story is 208 pages. Um, which might be interesting because I read parts of. I say this all the time, but I read parts of Fantastic Four: Life Story, and it was interesting. So I wonder if it's kind of going to be set up the same exact way. Oh, thank you, Scarlett. Okay. I was wondering if it was that or if it was her aunt that did something. But that's good to know. I've heard good things about it, Jessica. I know someone who really enjoyed it. So hopefully it's just as good. But I know a lot of people do like her from the games. So we'll see. Those are going to be um two very contrasting reads. And I think that July might be another heavy month. I think July is a heavy month because I think it's Malika, Warrior Queen, and Hotel Dare and Eve. That one's a lot. That too, that's a good point. All right, y'all. Thank you for joining me tonight and having this discussion with me. It's been great as always. Glad to have this back in the rotation again, considering we've been absent for a couple of months. Um, but yeah, July is huge. Thanks for because I was thinking, I was like, wait, because I was looking at my list and I was like, wait, if we're doing Clementine 1 and 2 and Chip Zdarsky in June, that means that July is going to be Malika Warrior Queen 1, 2, Hotel Dare, and Eve, which is because Malika Warrior Queen, those are really, really thick as well, too. Um, yeah, so don't wait for July either. I think like if you're gonna participate in June, I would say start reading as soon as possible. And I'm giving that notice to myself. And then same thing with July. As soon as July starts, or even like after our meeting for June, I would start reading for July too, because July is going to be a heavy month. Um, that's good. At least you got them done and you don't have to worry about it. I, on the other hand, do have to read all of that stuff because all of it is new to me, which is fun. All right, y'all. Thank you for joining me. I will see y'all again in on the say it one more time. Pull up a calendar on June 26th at 8:30 p.m. EST. And I can't wait to have that discussion too. Should be interesting. Good night, y'all. You only have Malika in July, Jessica, which is good. Good night, y'all. See y'all next month.